warm welcome to episode 40 of my Doll's House Diary. Now I've got a really quick episode for you today. I just want to show you the crocheted throw that I've completed for the main bedroom and tell you my plans for the rest of that room. I'm also going to build a little chest of drawers that I've made here before as a tutorial on the channel. I'm going to remake it for the main bedroom and I'd like you to join me as I do so. So let's get started. So I've completed my crocheted bed runner. It's 9 wide by 4 deep, and I find that size when you're doing squares of 4 sort of rounds, that size fits really nicely along a double bed or along the bottom of a double bed. And then I've done 1 crocheted round all the way around the joined squares, and I crocheted the squares together. And then I've just snipped off the tails at the back there, and I know some people like to actually crochet them in, and if you've got the time that's a better way of doing it, but just snipping them off works well, and I've never found that a square has come undone. So that looks fairly neat at the back there as well, so I'm really pleased with that, and I'm going to lay that into place just along the bottom of the bed there. Now, a couple of tutorials ago you would have seen that I made the little bedside cabinet there, which is going to go on that side of the bed. I'm going to have a lamp on there. And what I want to do now is remake a chest of drawers to stand on this side of the bed. And I think in my last video I said it was a 3-drawer chest. It is actually a 4-drawer chest, so it's got 2 smaller drawers at the top. So that's what I want to make now. And then I want to share with you my plans for the rest of the room. So let's go and start that little chest of drawers now. Okay, so I've got all of my pieces cut here for the chest of drawers, and just a couple of things. First of all, if ever you receive wood that's got sort of quite prominent knots in it, or the knots have actually gone through as they have here, then don't discard it, just keep hold of it. You can either cut round those and use it for sort of smaller pieces, or you can use it for the backs of units where obviously it's not going to be seen. So don't ever worry that a piece of wood is going to be wasted, because you can always use it at the back of a piece of furniture. And I measured the area to the left of the chimney breast, and I've resized my chest of drawers accordingly. And pieces are actually quite easy to resize if you're just resizing the width, because all you need to do is change the width of your back piece and your shelves, make up your main unit, and then you can cut your top piece. And you always want to leave 2mm at each side, and I think off the top of my head that's 5/64 of an inch for that beveled overhang. And then obviously you can remeasure again for your front moulding once the unit is built, and you can just pop your measure across the whole piece then and cut that piece accordingly. So all the little add-on bits you can measure once the unit is actually built, and that actually gives you a more accurate size as well. And to work out the size of the unit that's here on YouTube, just look at the cutting list, and the width of the chest of drawers top will be the overall width of the unit. So if you need it to be narrower than that, then obviously reduce your sizes, but you might want it to be wider as well. So then you would just add a little bit on to all of those measurements. But obviously your height and your depth will remain the same. So always begin by sanding along each edge of each piece, and you just want to go along the sandpaper in the one direction like that, so that you don't round off the corners. You want to keep everything square, and I've done all of these pieces. And then I always just go over each of them with a piece of 500 grade sandpaper and just sand the surfaces. So just go around in small circular motions like that, do that on both sides of the wood. And that gives you a really nice smooth surface then for your paint finish, wood dye or varnish. Once you've sanded, use a soft brush to get rid of the sanding dust. And we're now ready to construct. So I've marked up my pieces for placement of the shelves and the drawer divide. And as I said before, I'm not going to do a full tutorial for this just because it is already available on the channel. But it's just nice to have you along as company really as I work on it. And for the dressing table and little stool, I'm going to also use the tutorial that's here on the channel. And it's a nice sort of traditional style dressing table, again with turned legs. I think that will look really nice with this style of bedroom. And then what I also want to do today is get the design for the wardrobe sorted out. And then obviously I'll do that in a separate tutorial, but I just want to get the design sorted out today. And I want to get quite a big wardrobe in there. It's along that back wall, and I think it's going to look really nice with you know, some suitcases and things on top. Some sort of pretty storage boxes and things, so we can have fun dressing that as well. So I'll probably be going for a three door wardrobe if I can fit that in. But what I'll do is I'll find out the measurements of that dressing table I want to remake, and then we'll see what space we've got left. And that's always the best thing to do when you're designing. It's a good idea as well, if you can, to sort of do a bird's eye view floor plan. You know, always start with the bed, whether you're having a double or a single, because you know the size of that. They're obviously standard sizes. So draw that in, and then you can see what room you've got left. In my case, it's fairly easy because I knew where I wanted the bed in front of the chimney breast, and I knew that I wanted this chest of drawers beside it. So it's just really that back wall that I've got to plan. So I haven't done a floor plan this time. But you know, if it's a room where you're going to be having quite a bit of furniture, I always recommend a floor plan. And it's just a good starting place because you don't always have to stick to them throughout. You can change your mind as you go along. And sometimes, and I especially found this when I was doing the little Harbour Homewares shop. I'm talking as though I finished it. I haven't, I'm still working on it, but I've done all the main pieces of furniture. And once you actually start putting things in, it looks different to how you visualised it, even with your floor plan. So sometimes things will change. You know, for example, where I wanted 2 freestanding units in the middle of the shop floor. Once all the units are in along the back wall, that would have looked a little bit too crowded, so I changed it just to have 1 unit in the centre, even though on the plan that all looked as though it would work. So always sort of do your floor plan, do 1 piece of furniture at a time, and then see how things look actually in the room. So that's the final side in place there. So I'm going to put some masking tape on now to hold that together whilst the glue dries. And then whilst that's drying, I'm going to go and measure up for the dressing table and see what space we've got left for the wardrobe. Piece over there, and then I'm going to put a couple of pieces right over the front just to really hold it all together and hold it square. And I always like to go across a shelf or a supported piece, go across the sort of strength of the unit, and then you can give it a really good, pull across so that it's all held nice and tightly. And that's always what I mean by constructing the main part of the unit first. So there we've got the main structure of the piece. I need to measure and cut the drawers. But if you get to this stage, then you can measure across your top for your chest of drawers top piece, which will be your beveled piece. You can measure for your mouldings, and obviously you'd add a little bit on to cater for the mouldings that will sit along the side. So you'd add an extra 3mm, 1/8 of an inch on there. And you can just get more exact measurements. So if you're going by my cutting list exactly, then that's fine. But if you're constructing the piece to your own measurements, then just do this piece first and then take all your other measurements, and then you'll get a nice accurate cut. Okay, so let's go and measure up for the dressing table. Okay, so I'm just going to take the bed and the cabinet out of there, so I've got a bit of room to move about or to get in. Put that on there. Put that in there as well. So I've got here a piece of wood which will be the dressing table top, and that is 92mm wide, so just over 3.5 inches by 38mm, which is 1.5 inches. So that will be the size of my dressing table, and I want the dressing table to go over there. Because the dressing table is a smaller piece, once the bed's, if you imagine the bed back there, we can sort of look down the room and still see the dressing table. If the dressing table was over there, then obviously it would be hidden by the bed. So always have your bigger pieces behind the bed or at the side of the bed, because obviously you're still going to see the top of them. So I've got here my smaller rule, and I just really want to see what space I've got left there. Now I won't be having it obviously butt up against there because the window sticks out probably by about 1/4 inch. So I'm going to go from the side of that first wooden strip in there. And if I move the dressing table in a little bit as well, because I don't want that sort of stuck right next to the wall, and I'll be having the sort of Queen Anne legs on it and they curve out a little bit. So always think about that as well. So I think I want to come to about the end of the ruler actually. So that is 150, and then these are, how wide are my slats? 12mm. So 162 and then a little bit extra. So I've got 165mm. So I can make the wardrobe as wide as that. So that will be a really nice size wardrobe, and I'll be able to have 3 doors on there. I sort of want to do 3 drawers and then 3 doors above. I'm not going to have sort of fabric panels because that's what I done in the green room. Ooh, that was the door then, but stuck. So that was the wardrobe that I made for the green bedroom there. So with those fabric panels. Really like that, but I do want to do something different in this room. So yeah, 165mm, I'm going to go and make a note of that and then have a think about the design. Okay, so this is the sort of thing that I've got in mind, and it would be constructed in 3 parts, so this central part as one piece, and then I would add on these side parts and they would sit slightly backwards. So though in the picture these side pieces look higher up, it's just really to show that they're sort of narrower, if you like, than the middle section. So from the top, sort of bird's eye view, it would look like that. And then rather than having the 3 doors and 3 drawers, which I spoke about earlier, I would just have drawers in these side sections, which would be slightly narrower than the doors there. So I think that would look really nice. And obviously 165 is my maximum width, so I could do it a little bit narrower than that. But what I like to do is sort of get the pieces roughly cut, at least for the back of the unit, and then lay them together and see how that looks. But yeah, quite like that. I think that will look nice along the back wall of that bedroom. And as I said earlier, lots of sort of suitcases and boxes and things stored up there. So what I want to do now is get back to my chest of drawers. So I'm just starting work now on the moulding for the front of the chest of drawers. And again, this is all sort of explained in the tutorial, so I won't go into too much detail today. But I always start off with a paper template, and here's mine. And just a couple of things. You can make this as elaborate as you like, but then bear in mind you've actually got to cut it out of the wood. So I like to do a little bit of shaping in there, so I've got these sort of extra little bits coming down there. And then the other thing I always like to do is have it so that it's lower at the middle and at the outsides. I think if you sort of go in the middle, it doesn't look quite as nice when it's actually in place. So always sort of, you know, when you've folded your template so that you get it symmetrical, always sort of start lower in the centre there, and then do the rest of your pattern. I mean, it's you know, personal thing, but I just think that it looks nicer if you've got this dip in the middle rather than going up in the middle. Last little bit just coming out now. Like that. And this is certainly a skill worth practicing. I remember when I first tried shaping wood by hand, I used to cut pieces off that I intended to keep and just make a complete mess of it, but do persevere, because you will get to the stage where you're able to actually cut out a shape. And I know you can use different types of saws and things if you have those sorts of tools, but I always like to do things by hand, and after a bit of practice you get quite good at it. It's just really all about taking your time, always thinking about where your fingers are in relation to the knife blade, so you don't have any little accidents, and then shaping it. And I always like to use a piece of 500 grade, so just something really gentle. You can wrap it around your finger or around a sort of wider paintbrush or a pencil to help get the shape right. And then we sort of neaten it off. Okay, so I'm now ready to glue my front moulding into place. I've attached the side and back ones, as you can see there. And then what I'll do is I'll measure for my drawers, attach the top piece, and then cut and construct the drawers whilst that's drying. And it just saves a little bit of time, because when you've got the top piece in place with the masking tape and the clamps, you can't get in to measure the drawers. So have a think about the order that you do things in as well, especially if, like me, you're always struggling for time. And I did say in one of my episodes early on in April that I was going to try and get more on, and I did get a few more videos on than normal, but nowhere near as many as I really wanted to. And again, it's just a time thing, just because the actual recording and editing can take an entire day, or the recording can take a day, the editing another sort of half a day. And then as well as that, I've got my Patreon channel where I share 3 videos a month, and they're normally longer and more detailed. And I also have my Etsy shop, which takes up quite a bit of time as well, so there's just never enough time in the day. So I would love to be able to sort of share here more regularly, and of course I'd be doing more work on my own doll's house, so that would be nice, but it's just not doable unless I sort of work evenings and every weekend instead of just the occasional evening and occasional weekend. Okay, so I've glued that into place. When you're doing that, just make sure you're not above that bottom shelf, otherwise you'll have trouble with that bottom drawer. And then I just leave that to dry completely, and then once it has, probably tomorrow now, I'll come around and sand around these front corners just to really tidy that off and sort of blend in the side with the front. But I think that looks really nice. So now to measure the drawers. So I've made a start on the drawers, and I've cut the pieces for the 2 larger drawers, and I've actually just used pencil to write on them which piece goes where, because the bottom drawer is just slightly narrower than the central drawer. So always a good idea just to make a note of which bit goes where if you're going to be sort of muddling them up on your desk. And I'm now going to slide those out of the way, attach the top, and then I can construct the drawers while the top is drying into place. So I'm just going to pop a bit of glue straight onto the top of the unit, and then use a spreader just to spread that out. Make sure you get it right along the edges, otherwise you'll have gapping. underneath your sort of top part. So pop the back piece into place. Nice straight edge along the back, and the even overhang at each side. So look around from all angles, make sure you're getting it in the right place. Try not to push up on the bottom of the chest, because you've got a sort of long unsupported piece, you might crack it, so just be really careful when you're pressing pieces into place that you're doing it on a supported part. Get rid of the excess glue, and then I'm going to use masking tape and clamps to hold this into place. And I also sanded around those bottom corners where I attach the moulding, and I sand around the sort of side like that, and then down in that corner, so create a bevel coming from top to bottom as well, and then you don't just have that sharp point in that corner. And that's just a nice little finishing off tip. So let's put some tape on here. Grab my clamps as well. I'm going to put a couple of pieces straight over the back as well, just to hold that down at the back. Piece the other side. And then, as usual, clamps along the front edge. And you always need to clamp things down, because as the glue begins to dry, the pieces will try to sort of lift apart or pull apart. So always clamp as well. Even if you think it looks okay, that will sort of begin to happen. That's a bit skewed, that one. I think it's coming apart. I'll find another one. Get as many in there as you can. Even if it looks a little bit overkill, it's best to use as many as you can. And then one more the other side. Nudge those others out of the way. That can be left to dry, and I can carry on with the drawers. So once my drawers had completely dried, I sanded them on all sides and then fitted them. A few of them needed a little bit of extra sanding, and I'm now happy with the fit of all of those. So I've gone ahead and cut the mouldings for the front of the drawers, and for those I'm using 0.8mm sheet wood, and I've gone around and beveled the edge of each piece, or each edge of each piece, and I just did that in my hand just because the wood is quite fine, and if you do it against your sandpaper as you would with a thicker piece of wood, then you might end up cracking it. So just do it in your hand, and always get your drawers to fit first before you cut your mouldings, and then just deduct a couple of millimetres from each measurement, height and width, so that you've got a little bit of a border around the outside. But always make sure you've got those drawers to the exact sizes before you cut the mouldings. So I'm now going to fit the mouldings, and then once they're dry I can fit the drawer knobs, and then it will be time for paint. So my drawer mouldings are drying into place. They've been drying for a while now, so I'm ready to start attaching the drawer knobs. And for those I'm using these little 2.5mm diameter turned wooden knobs. That's 3/32 of an inch. I'm going to start by drilling the hole in the centre of the top two drawers, and then I can work out where I need to do the two drawer knobs on the wider drawers. And it's always best to have them lined up, because that's going to look more pleasing to the eye. But start with your narrower drawers or smaller drawers, and then you can get a measurement. I'm going to have to take that off to get my drill bit out. I'm using my largest drill bit, which is 1.6mm, and the back of the sort of little knob is about 2mm, I think, so I'll just need to make that hole slightly bigger, which I'm sure you've seen me do before. Get that nice and tight in there. And then I use my smaller rule to find the centre of the drawer, clear myself a bit of space, and go from the actual edge of the drawer rather than the edges of your moulding, just in case you've placed that a little bit off centre, and then it will look sort of out about there. So find your centre that way, and then again go from the top and bottom of the drawer rather than the top and bottom of the moulding, and drill your hole. I always give that a quick jiggle, just make the hole a little bit bigger. You can then try the draw knob into place. So that's just a little bit too tight there. So I'm just going to take a clean cocktail stick and just push that into the hole. Give it a twist. And that should fit nicely in there. Like that. So even though it's a good fit, I like to just apply a little tiny bit of glue just to make sure that's attached nice and firmly. Sort of dot that around the edges of the hole there. Oops. Put that into place. Make sure it's sitting flush against the front of the drawer and not at an angle. Like that, and then you could do the same with the other drawer. So once you've fitted the drawer knobs to the top two drawers, measure in again from the side of the chest rather than the side of the drawer into the centre of the drawer knob, or the centre of the stem of the drawer knob, and that will be your measurement for the next two when your drawers are sitting in position. So again, come along from the edge of the chest, make your pencil marks go in that way. Do the same with the other drawer, rather than just assuming that it's going to be the same width away. And mine are out by about just under 0.5mm. So again, make your pencil marks in from the edge, and then you can take the drawers out and make the pencil mark in the centre from top to bottom, and that's where you'll drill your hole. Okay, so this piece is now ready for paint, and I'll be using again the ivory emulsion paint that I used for the little bedside cabinet or nightstand in the bedroom. And there is the completed chest of drawers, and I really love that in that ivory paint. I think that looks really nice. So let's go and put it into place in the doll's house. And that is going to sit there. I think that looks really nice. I'm looking forward to dressing this piece as well. So we'll have a nice lamp on there and some pictures, or a set of pictures on the wall here, and then just some nice little bits and pieces on there. But I really like how this room is coming along. I love the colour scheme in there. We've got our other little lamp table over there, which we won't really know about until we've got a lamp on it. And then there'll be a tutorial coming up for the wardrobe, and I'll probably just have you keep me company as well as I build the little dressing table. Now, I did say I'd be trying to upload more videos in April, and I did upload a few more than normal, but not as many as I wanted, and that's just because I'm super busy at the moment finishing off my little Harbour Homewares shop project over on my Patreon channel. And I'm just working on the penultimate episode now, and then the last episode will be aired in June. And then in July I'm going to be making a start on the Mountfield doll's house, which I'm going to be turning into a 1940s doll's house. So really excited about making a start on that. And if you'd like to come and join me for that, you can join me at tier 2 over on Patreon from just £2.50 a month, and that's $3. And if you join for a year up front, then you get 10% off that. And that's an episode every month, and they're normally well over an hour long. And that's going to be a really exciting series, so I do hope you'll have a think about joining me there. But I really hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.